The truth is that they're shook. They're shook. They're afraid. They're concerned. They're worried. Who am I speaking about specifically? Those who hold in their minds and their hearts and their conscience the legacy of white supremacy, especially through white Christian nationalism. It's not all white people. In fact, I'm convinced that it's not the majority of white people. That's just my small opinion. But the small handful that has this anxiety, this fear, this worry, white supremacy is on its deathbed. ICU. It's about the flatline. And they can't save it. It's a panic. It's a concern. The world is no longer impressed by it, worried about it. They're no longer in illusion or delusion concerning the legacy of lies, deception, false narratives, history told in certain ways that hide certain things and plays around with certain truths. Everybody knows now that it all was a lie. There's a desperation to try to rile up Black America. The oligarchs, lobbyists, the monarchs who gather together in this anxiety over the expiration of white Christian nationalism, white supremacy, they need a justification to go ahead and do what they really want to do with African Americans, so-called African Americans. But we're not protesting. We're not in the streets making noise. We're not tearing shit up. The CIA tactics, it's not working. Debating, it's not working. Provocation, it's not working. We collectively are behaving like retired people. Nobody is riled up to get in the streets and fight and make noise. In fact, it's the only reason America has not had a revolution yet. The truth is that everybody's waiting for Black Americans to throw the first punch. They're waiting for Black Americans to lead the platoon. That's why there hasn't been a physical revolution. We're the ones who have the guts to push the line, the spirit to go beyond what already is, to bring the innovation, the resistance, the revolution. It's our nature. It's in the blood. It's who we are. Since the beginning of this nation, every people who's not a white person, including many white people too, they're waiting for us to do something. Let me clarify before somebody takes what I'm saying and runs with it and misconstrues it. I don't agree that the answer is to take up arms and go and start violence, or to be violent, or to condone violence. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm clarifying is, because we haven't, the people haven't. We're the ones that lead revolutions. change that stops the previous patterns of injustice, oppression. We're the ones that does that. Black Americans. Nobody else does that. And it's the only reason you haven't seen it yet. Every community of every demographic is waiting. Let me clarify something. That's not the revolution. The real revolution is status correction. That's the real revolution for Black Americans. Status correction is the first step, the main step. It is the main thing to first clarify that we are not Negro, Black, colored, or African American. No, we're not. Those were titles given to us of social designation. Those were titles given to us consistent with the 14th Amendment. Those were titles given to us to obscure the clarity in who we are, which most of us are not from Africa. We know now who we are. Indigenous Native American Indians. Not Native Americans. Those are the light-skinned ones. Asians, Siberians. I said indigenous. And we were given titles of non-descent. It is futile for so-called African Americans to be marching and protesting without proper status. Status is first. Always has been, always will be. You have to exert a lot of energy when you're ignorant. A lot of energy when you don't know what the fuck you're doing. There's no political progress. There's no entry through common law, equity, Republican law, i.e. Constitution, and claim and consent to the 14th Amendment status as a citizen. Only nationals can approach without muscle. We're the only people on the entire earth who had to take so long to remember and recall who we are. There's nobody else on earth with that story. Nobody. In this great America. Marcus Garvey came and gave us the red, the black, and green flag, pointing at Pan-Africanism, and it had its benefits. Noble Drew Ali came and prepared and reintroduced our nationality and access to the claim as Moors, Moorish Americans. Nonetheless, it's futile to make any attempts as a black person, a Negro, a colored, or an African American. You will get nowhere because your status is dead, a corpse, civilis mortuus. And you're already in contempt when you assume that about yourself. It's futile. Collective status correction is what leaps us ahead many generations. And upon doing that, we set the precedents and leadership for other indigenous peoples of the earth to do the same thing. And there's your progress. Change comes to us. And it don't make a difference if you don't like us. It don't make a difference if you don't like niggas. You got shit to say. You get mad when we express clarity in the self. It don't fucking matter. Who made the Statue of Liberty a true and sincere claim? On whose back and shoulders does every person from every nation come here in banana boats and fucking flip-flops to seek opportunity? On whose back? American niggas. Ain't nobody going nowhere until we do. Ain't nobody making no progress until we make a move. There will be no revolution until we set the precedents. But it has to be clarified what the revolution truly is: status correction. And the spirit of revolution is to realign with the matriarchal core of the self, which means to have a damn conscience. To restore loyalty to your inner child. To have compassion, sympathy, and empathy for your neighbor, your brother, your sister. To give a fuck. To cry for somebody else. To get angry for somebody else. To advocate for somebody else. That's the revolution. For man and woman to love each other, not fall in love. There's a difference. To realize the value, the wisdom, and the duty in forming families, man, woman, and child, not just woman and child. To come out of feminism, consumerism, corporate lust and ambition, greed, selfishness, narcissism, materialism, hypersexuality, fornicating, promiscuity. You can't talk about revolution if these are still your enemies that you have not conquered. You will continue to suffer because you deserve it. You fucking deserve it. People are exhausted behind the flags, the nationalities, the status, the demographics, hoping that somebody throws the first punch, thinking that that's going to save them and give them release if you go to the streets. No. The revolution is internal, beyond status correction. And even in status correction, it is a spiritual journey also. Because after all, Saturn and Neptune is headed into Aries. Fucking newsflash. Status correction. And we spent plenty of time with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, clarifying the conceptualization of the self and authenticity. reclaiming the truth of the self through Scorpio. And Black Moon Lilith is now going to teach us to incorporate the true beliefs of the conviction of the body that we were taught to be ashamed of or hold in contradiction to the lies and false narratives outside of the body, and conflict, the cognitive dissonance, status correction. Being who God made you to be. Doing what you agreed in heaven to do when you came the fuck down here. Assuming your life as a sacrifice for humanity. Finding what your service is to give to humanity. Revolution. That is the revolution. To become lovable, to become respectable, to become qualified to enter the gates of intimacy. To become qualified husbands, qualified wives, qualified fathers, qualified mothers. This is revolutionary. Did we forget the will and intention of corporation? It was to dissolve this status in ourselves as mothers and fathers, as husbands and wives, as brother and sister, as neighbor. Founded in matriarchal conviction, Cancer. Jupiter is expanding this understanding. Why can't we see? Revolution? You're a liar. You're still answering to Negro, Black, colored, African American. You're in contempt because you're only reinforcing the fact that you're ignorant. You're stupid. Where are you going with that? What's your nationality? What is your nationality? What is your forefather and your foremother's nationality? Not the assumption of what the sperm of rapists and pedophiles who came as conquistadors and settlers, colonists, renaming every people, reclassifying every people. You don't know who you are. You don't have a fucking clue who you are. You're confused. And in spirit, it's the same. As above, so below. This has to be clarified in civics just as it does in the spirit. And you can't have one without the other, lest there be contradiction in your walk. Revolution? Shut the fuck up. Read a damn book. Become intelligent. You're going to pick up guns. You're going to go fight. You're going to back down ICE. You're going to run into government and take over. But you're afraid of love. You're afraid to be loved. You're afraid of intimacy. You're afraid to show compassion. You're afraid to be yourself if nobody approves it. You're scared to have a fucking opinion, a conviction. You forgot how to cry for somebody else. You forgot how to get angry for somebody else. So how the fuck will you last? How will you access courage? How will you access bravery? Maybe you don't understand how courage and bravery works. They're scared. The numbers on the earth are getting low. Nobody believes the lies anymore. No one sees them as superior anymore. They're scared. They're losing control. It's like a husband that realizes his wife doesn't love her anymore. They're scared, terrified. And all they can do is pass around propaganda, fear-mongering. Oh, look at those Muslims over there. Oh, black men are 13% of the population and they're killers and murderers. They're ruining this country. Hide your daughters. They're creeps. They might stab you. They might shoot you. Oh, black people, they're so dangerous. Watch out for those niggas. Black men, that's the problem in America today. All while hiding behind their back the obvious. Who's the number one pedophile in this country? Who are the teachers that end up pregnant time and time again by elementary level students? Kids. Pregnant by little fucking kids. White women. White men are the number one pedophile. The kiddie porn. Sexual crimes. And they're in the White House doing the same fucking thing. But we the danger of this nation. Muslims are the danger of this nation. But everyone recalls, no matter what flag they come from, no matter what land or nationality or who their forefathers is, or what language they speak, the ships pulled up to the shores with crosses on it. Settlers and conquistadors came in the name of the Catholic Church, the Vatican, Jewish bankers, the same terrorists terrorized every nation on earth, every people on earth, the same fucking terrorists, Khazarians and white Christian nationalists, Constantinian Romans. But it's their hope that you will fear somebody else, that they can vilify somebody else, that they can get the attention off of themselves, that they can escape and outstrip the truth that's exposing them. In this nation right here, niggas was hanging from trees by Christian white men. Crosses were burning in the front yard of niggas with Christian white men and Jews. In this nation right here, and it wasn't long ago. Fuck is you talking about? We should be afraid of Muslims. We should be afraid of black men. The hypocrisy. The Christian black codes was right here. It was called Christian black codes. Cookbooks on how to cook Negroes and eat them. Human trafficking that established this nation by Christians and Khazarians. Human trafficking. Am I exaggerating? Hello? You're looking at a descendant of those same people. They're scared. They're shook. And in their fear, they're desperate to last a little longer, to hold on to power a little longer. But it's not going to work. It's like quicksand. The more you move around and scurry, the deeper you're going to sink. It's not going to work. Black people aren't being a problem in this nation. You don't hear a peep out of black people. You don't hear no noise from black people. And that's why they got to lift their voice and keep pushing that fear mongering. Anywhere where the Christian nationalists congregate, it's division, hate speech, animosity, vilification of others who are not white. That's all they do. There's a desperation right now to stop what they see coming. And what they see coming is the switch in the seats. It's not your turn anymore. Indigenous people of the earth are now going to come up, and you will never stop it. And we don't even have to fight for it. Mother Nature is already manifesting it. They'll never stop it. Donald Trump says white people were very badly treated, where they did extremely well and they were not invited to go into a university or college. He was referring to affirmative action in college admissions, which was struck down by the Supreme Court 2023. I think it was also the same time it accomplished some very wonderful things, but also hurt a lot of people that deserve to go to college or deserve to get a job or unable to get a job. So it was a reverse discrimination. There's truth in everything. There's truth in everything, okay? You just can't say all of it ain't true. You know what I mean? I'm going to be fair. And in fact, I'm going to point out too that affirmative action and many of civil rights policies, when it blended with feminism and liberalism, it turned into all-out racism. I am not shy to say that. It turned into flat-out racism. When black women started utilizing those policies, and when feminism was a deliberate attempt to put women ahead of the men in society, because it destabilizes society and keeps society in an era of confusion and chaos, black women turn into super narcissists behind their use of these policies. Totally arrogant, totally racist, inappropriate. And to be honest, many people were accessing colleges, accessing careers, accessing certain roles in society based on entitlement, privilege, but not necessarily merit. As an Asiatic man, as a Moor, as an indigenous Native American, as a so-called Negro, black, colored, African American, I can admit that this is damn sure the case. It was not the original intention of the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action, so on and so forth. It was not meant to turn into a circus of arrogance and narcissism and a tool that would dismantle and divide the black family unit. Black women turned into white supremacists themselves behind their access to roles in society through the Civil Rights Act. They turn into white supremacists against black males through their access to this, through the status that they were able to procure through this. The total arrogance, and I've seen it my entire life. And yes, very racist. Very racist. I couldn't give two fucking shits who don't like me saying it, because it's the motherfucking truth. I do have something else to say about this that balances out what I'm saying. And this is the point where you unsubscribe. This is the point where you clutch your pearls. This is the point where you get mad or whatever else. You say, oh, I ain't gonna like this video. Yeah, suck a fucking dick. Suck two dicks. I feel the same way about you. Suck two dicks, nigga. Anyway, I continue. Elon Musk says on January 8th to X, which is, which used to be, what was that website? What was that app called? Twitter. So on X, a subscriber by the name of Jer, and I'll post it up here, he says, if white men become a minority, we will be slaughtered. Remember, if non-whites openly hate white men, while white men hold a collective majority, when they will be 1,000 times more hostile and cruel when they are a majority over whites, white solidarity is the only way to survive. That's a guilty conscience. That is the sound of a guilty conscience. It's when you do somebody dirty and your soul knows that karma has to calibrate a reciprocation of the dirt that you did. So you're anticipating the piano falling on your head because you dropped the piano on somebody else's head. It's a guilty conscience. It's just that fucking simple. Does he have to have a guilty conscience? I don't know. I didn't walk his life. But this is a guilty conscience. I don't want them to get up because they're going to treat us way worse. What makes you assume that? Because that's what you would do if you had an upper hand? As I told you before, Saturn transiting Pisces is about the fucking guilty conscience. And the main motherfucker who has to heal a guilty conscience is white folks in America. And it is clear as day to see. Some of y'all listening to me is racist, which is why you scared to even talk about this shit. You got a guilty conscience, which is why you can't entertain the thought of this being spoken by someone outwardly. Elon Musk goes to say in response to this, although he didn't say, he shared. Okay, so Elon Musk shared this sentiment. Okay, Elon Musk. So, Elon Musk, we know, identifies as, a Pluto oligarch. Donald Trump as a monarch. We know this. And this brings us to memory lane of the secret treaty of Verona. Of course, this in consideration with the fact that this goes back to a very ancestral trait of survival. This is literally instinctual survival being exposed as thoughts and expressions. There's fear operating here, guilt operating here, and a desperation for power and control because of it. They're scared. They're terrified. They're shook. They're in a panic. And they're unable to hide it anymore.
When will you meet with Machado this week?
Looking for something to grab here because it's going to get rough, and I don't seem to be in a. I think you did this to me. You put me in a position where there's absolutely nothing to grab.
Mr. President.
So I'm looking for something to grab, and it's not going to be Caroline.
Mr. President, oil companies made commitments to you, sir. Have any oil companies made commitments to the United States?
We've been here before. And before, it was called the Secret Treaty of Verona. The Secret Treaty of Verona. By now, you probably looked into that. You could go to my website, and also read on it, as well as the Monroe Doctrine. The Secret Treaty of Verona led to the Monroe Doctrine. And just to catch up on that, it's because Napoleon Bonaparte posed a threat to the monarchs and oligarchs of his time, because the monarchs and oligarchs of his time were initiating the global practices of incorporations over nation states, over people, over tribes, over societies that stem from Vatican and the Catholic Church. The initiations of this was out of France. Now, what Napoleon Bonaparte did was he studied Prophet Muhammad, Arhik al-Maktoum. He studied Islam, and in doing so, he found a route and influence to transfer conviction to the people to see that the revolution was accessible. The revolt was accessible. The coup d'etat was accessible to them. And they could create a view, a claim of a republic. Some people, unfortunately, still don't know the difference between a republic and a democracy, de facto democracy. I don't fault you on that unless you deliberately chose not to know. Do you not know this while you had opportunity to know it, and you just selected ignorance willfully? That's a problem. So anyway, a republic reflects matriarchal foundation, equity, common law, the essence that inspired the Magna Carta, which then became the basis of European legal expression that was to protect the interests of the people. The Magna Carta is understood to be a pillar of modern constitutional law, Bill of Rights. These documents that form the statement of a republic, the intention of a republic, the laws of a republic, and clarifies the rights of the people. The Magna Carta, of course, this came into play because King John, which is the forefather of every president that we have had, except for one president, including Donald Trump, a forefather of Donald Trump, yes, and Obama too, a forefather of Obama. King John is their forefather of every president. He was made to sign it because this nigga was wilding with his power. He was wilding with his power and authority as a monarch and oligarch, and the people who were landowners or landlords, the people who had stake in society, barons, they had to make sure that there was a means of checking power and limiting power because he's doing too much. And lo and behold, the descendants of King John took on the same expression in their blood, where when it comes to Constitution, when it comes to Bill of Rights, when it comes to a Republican form of governance in society, they overstep and overlook and take interest and precedence in their self as monarchs and oligarchs and Khazarians while shitting on the people, sticking the big middle finger up to the working class people, to the common people. Like father, like son. Of course, this doesn't include the first 9 presidents, in which George Washington was the 9th president, not the first president. But we could talk about that shit another time if you want to. They just gotta hide the identity that would expose ongoing legacies of false narratives. But anyway, back to the point I'm making. Secret Treaty of Verona. It was about these monarchs and oligarchs' fear and insecurity of the people ever being able to challenge their inappropriate expression of power and authority, domination, control, abuse of power. Making sure that that can never happen again, because the point is to prevent a coup d'etat, to prevent revolution, to prevent the people's power from checking their inappropriate power. And Napoleon Bonaparte showed them how real that is, showed them how possible that was, and he got it from Prophet Muhammad. From that time period on, the Holy Alliances came together with an agreement to use religion, Christianity specifically, and media to make sure that they subject the people into a docile state. Misinformation, propaganda, whatever it takes to make sure that the people never come to these conclusions again, to where they see that power, authority, and liberation is always accessible to them if they have the courage, the knowledge, and conviction to claim it. Islam makes people aware of common law. It makes people aware of divine law. It makes people aware of what fairness looks like, of what justice really looks like when it's expressed in a society, what protecting women really looks like, what fair banking systems really look like. It exposes the one who's perpetrating. It exposes the one who's misusing power or abusing power or exercising inappropriate powers. It naturally exposes. To study Prophet Muhammad and attempt to emulate his character, it puts you in position to place preventative standards and culture in your life that has you to never consent to or subjugate yourself to these inappropriate powers and assumptions of judgment over you in society. You skip all that bullshit, and that's a problem. They can't have another coup d'etat, they can't have another revolution, they can't have another Napoleon Bonaparte. We almost lost power. You can't let that shit happen again. So, the secret treaty of Verona. Then when it came to Latin America, they didn't want Spain or Europe, that is the American government, they didn't want Spain or Europe to interfere with what they wanted to do with the fruits, the booty of their exercise or practice of manifest destiny over the North America, Central America, and South America. They wanted to make the claim that these are my hoes, I'm the pimp, go get your own hoes. Don't question my pimping. Don't judge or criticize my pimping. Don't interfere with my pimping. If you see me slapping my bitch, if you see me demanding that she put my money in my motherfucking hand, you bet not say shit, because this is my home. And that's how they looked at Latin America. Which is why it may surprise people that, Trump is moving the way he does with Greenland, Canada, Central America, South America. Because Trump is reminded of the Monroe Doctrine, and he's wagging his tail. So, likewise, the mentioning of Trump with the Civil Rights Act and planting the seed of thought that it was unfair to white people in the end of it. And then you got another oligarch, Elon Musk, chiming in on the desperation and hysteria of white Christian nationalists, of the fact that the white population is declining globally, They feel threatened. The numbers are dwindling. They feel a sense of urgency to maintain status and power and domination. So what is the modern threat to their power as monarchs and oligarchs? Not as government officials, as monarchs and oligarchs. Because after all, monarchs and oligarchs run a democracy. A democracy is simply a corporation that practices statutes and policies, not constitutional law. And they engineer the consent, the perception, the beliefs, the opinions, the thoughts, the convictions, the votes of the people. They engineer it. And that's what niggas gotta understand. And so, Trump and Elon Musk and the rest of these fucking KKK motherfuckers, they're showing their fear. They're showing their insecurities. They're showing their concerns. They're not able to maintain a poker face about what they see ahead. It's about what they see ahead. These niggas is shook. And all you have to do is look at who is the propaganda aimed against. Who is the fear-mongering of white Christian nationalists? Who is it aimed at? Yeah, people of color. Of course, that's a given. But specifically, who are they obsessed with painting as terrorists, monsters, and threats? Who is their obsession? The black male and the Muslim. The black male and the Muslim. So I already clarified what's going on with the Muslim. That goes all the way back to the secret treaty of Verona. They can't let that shit happen again. But on the other end, we have specifically the African American male, who really is the indigenous Native American Indian. Copper tone, chestnut tone skin, Moor. Renamed and titled as Negro, Black, Colored, African American. A status of non-descent. A status of non-descent. In order to block him from his natural estate in the land. Anyway, the Civil Rights Act was given to the world by the African Americans. The Statue of Liberty in New York City it stood as a beacon of hope, prosperity, liberty and liberation, freedom, the American dream. For centuries. For every nationality across the earth. For niggas to come over here in flip-flops, banana boats, or climbing over the motherfucking border to get a new start in life toward the American dream. And for many people, it came true. For many people, it worked. For many people, it has been a success. It has been a blessing. But everybody that comes over here, they talk shit about African Americans. They got everything negative to say about African Americans. They prep talk their kids. They prep talk their daughters and their sons. Don't fuck with them niggas over there. They're dysfunctional. They're bad people. They're violent. They'll rape you and they'll murder you. Buying into what white supremacists want everybody to think of us. And for the light-skinned motherfuckers that come over here from other nations of the Latin world and of the East, anybody lighter than the color of a fucking penny or a chestnut, thinking that they getting ready to come to America and blend in with white folks, scoot on into the status of white folks, and I'm good if I smash a hat down on my head and talk like them, walk like them, and dress like them, and then look down on niggas. But 2025 was the wake-up call for every last one of y'all motherfuckers who's not white. It was a wake-up call that you're not white. And African Americans was trying to tell y'all motherfuckers that shit. You're not white. No matter how you try to talk like it, push your degrees around and dress like it, walk like it, act like it, imitate them and everything else, put on repeat his talking points, you're still not white, motherfucker. And you got your nigga wake-up call. And then everybody want to come crying to African Americans for help, for guidance, for insight. Up all night studying what the fuck we did and how the fuck we did it. But too much pride to admit that that's what the fuck they doing in the middle of the night. Because truth be told, we're one of the only motherfuckers on earth that really know how to deal with this nigga. For the past few decades, African American females have had the loudest mouth in the barn, the loudest mouth in the yard. She ain't no threat. Because she has no moral conviction. She has no moral compass. She has no values. She's misguided. Why? Because she has no husband and she has no father. That's why. She's self-destructive. She's not a threat. She's just making noise. She's selfish. She's materialistic. And there's no threat about her. No matter how racist she wants to be, she's still not a threat. But the African American male, he's a threat. He's a threat. He's not racist. He looks objectively at what the fuck is going on. And when he stands up to fight for something, everybody wins. When he stands up for social justice, through civics, through politics, through spirituality, everybody fucking wins. Because he has the all-encompassing eye that includes all people. And what he gains, it benefits all nations of the motherfucking earth. And there's nobody who can say it's not true. Because every immigrant of legal and illegal status has the African American to thank for the covering of that access and the legacy of that access, even though you talk shit about us. So Trump's statement about the Civil Rights Act, it really ain't about African American people. It's really about the fact that the Civil Rights Act is a gateway for all people of all nations who access America to enter a competitive opportunity in the market. that gives them access to the creation of family, legacy, businesses, so on and so forth. And there's a deliberate attempt, obviously, confirmed by what Elon Musk is saying, confirmed by what Trump is saying, to reduce the competition, to weaken the competition. You see how many black women got sent home from their corporate jobs? Unemployment rate up 7%. Up to 7%. And the claim was DEI. But DEI benefits white women more than anyone. Just like food stamps and SNAP benefits white women more than anyone. There's a lot of misinformation out there. But competition is being reduced and stalled. And Elon Musk not being able to hold his pee, running his fucking mouth, all he's doing is giving a game plan. They're telling on themselves. They're scared. And they're using inappropriate power to reduce the competition. They don't want non-white people to overwhelm their numbers. So it's a closing of the gates to allow their numbers to catch up. The Civil Rights Act also points at African Americans when they're in their right mind, and the only proof and evidence of them being in their right mind is when they can get married and have families and stay together and raise households and build communities. That is the only evidence and proof of African American community being in their right mind. It's the only proof. It's the only evidence. If they're not doing that, they are not in their right mind. But when they are in their right mind, they're a force to be reckoned with. And off of that strength, they're able to fight anything that poses as inappropriate power over them. Because African American people do not lay down. They don't lay down. African American people are brilliant when it comes to demystifying, decoding, figuring out, showing resilience, prevailing over all of white supremacist traps and snares. Ain't none of that shit work. The 400 years of this nation, and ain't none of it work. We are the ones who studied. We are the ones who's imitated, copied, and looked at, examined, when it's time to fight his inappropriate power. And that makes us another Napoleon Bonaparte. They can't have somebody coming along, creating shit, initiating shit, like the Civil Rights Act. Another hit like that will finish off those small numbers that's still standing, that they are desperately trying to blow air on to get the fire to spread. It's like a fire that's dying out, and they're desperately blowing. They're desperately trying to blow on that fire to make it bigger. But can't have babies fast enough. And with the wave of feminism, good luck with that. Because although these bitches is fucking, they ain't trying to have no babies. And the males of society have already been sent into the wilderness, just like Ogun retracted into the wilderness. And it was only Oshun who could lure him out of the wilderness. Feminism did the same thing and told the same story about the dormancy of our males in this society because of feminism. Now he's eyeing the Civil Rights Act. He's looking at it, walking circles around it, salivating at what he could take apart, what he can modify to create more advantage for what Elon Musk pointed out, and more disadvantage for who could pose as the competition or the threat. It'll never work. Ever. Because when it comes to the so-called African Americans, nothing they ever do, nothing they ever have done, has ever worked. It will never work. Ever. What do we do with these niggas? What do we do with African Americans? They're a fucking problem. I can't deport these motherfuckers. I can't run propaganda because they always figure it out. I can't play mind games because they're 10 steps ahead of us. We're out of tricks. And I'm going to tell you this. Any disadvantage for the African American is a disadvantage for any people of any color, of any kind who is not white. It's a disadvantage for you too. And any advantage for us is advantage for any people of any kind who is not white. And it has always been that way, but don't nobody want to acknowledge it. You want to talk shit. Elon and Trump is telling on themselves. They're telling on themselves about what type of conversations they're having behind doors. What are the concerns? What is the fear? What is the anxiety? What do they see ahead in the future? And what they're willing to do about it.